Hi, this is Björkman from Audio Issues. In anticipation of Ian Shepherd of Production Advice reopening his home mastering masterclass, I asked him to give his advice on a home master I did of a song by my band, The Long Wait, released a few months ago. The song is called Dispute, and you can hear the full song over at thelongwait.com. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go through the mastering process of the signal chain of Dispute and try to tell you my reasoning behind each decision I made. Not only will that possibly help you get some insight into it, but it'll also give Ian a chance to kind of see what my thought process was when he ends up giving his advice on what he would do in the mastering phase. It's my hope that people can learn something from it, and it also might have the unfortunate side effect of me wondering why I did something and trying to remember actually why it did, because it's been a few months, so it's not all crystal clear in my memory. But let's dive in, and I'll show you the unmastered mix that I did first. Just a quick chorus of everything here.
I lay my hands upon no other, and I raise my hands up to the sky. The boy is gone. I lay my hands upon no other, and I raise my hands up to the sky.
All right. So if you want to hear the rest of the song, it's on thelongwait.com. So of course, first up is a linear phase multiband compressor here from Waves. And I already know that I've broken one of Ian's rules of putting EQ first. So I'll go stand in the corner for a little bit until I learn my lesson. Okay, well, I'm back now. I've learned my lesson, and I definitely will use EQ as the first processor from now on. Well, I guess the reason behind putting the multiband compression first has to do with the fact that I either mixed into it during the mixing phase, or I just wanted some glue at the end before I started mastering. So I believe the thought process behind all these particular settings here is that I just was trying to find a preset that sounded decent, and then I fiddled with the threshold. But like I said, it's been a while, so I don't have exact reasons why the settings are as they are. Listening back to it and bypassing just the multiband compressor, I can tell that it's smoothing out the low mids, which makes the overall mix a bit tighter and less messy, I suppose. Too much mid buildup can often lead to a pretty messy mix, so it definitely helps in that aspect. So let's check out the mix with just the multiband compression here.
I lay my hands upon no other, and I raise my hands up to the sky. The boy is gone. I lay my hands upon no other, and I raise my...
So you can hear how it kind of glues everything a little bit better together, and it tightens everything up. The thing is also with the linear multiband compressor from Waves is I'm also never quite comfortable using it. It does sound good once I've kind of tweaked things around here and there, but it always seems a little more complicated than it really needs to be. And even though I read the manual, it always kind of eludes me what I can and or cannot do with it. And as an aside, Ian's Mastering with Multiband Compression series has actual settings for the multiband compression that are way simpler than what is going on here. And I actually use another multiband compressor with that setting every once in a while. But I'm trying to get more into using this plugin, but like I said, kind of eludes me every once in a while. All right, let's move on to the linear broadband EQ here. So I think the main thought here was to reduce some harshness in the mids around 1K. I probably started there and then worked my way down until I settled on 861 hertz. Did the same thing then with a very subtle cut at 5K. And then I finally added a tiny boost at 258 to add warmth. So let's take a listen to that.
I lay my hands upon no other, and I raise my hands up to the sky. The boy is gone. I lay my hands upon no other, and I raise my hands up to the sky.
So it definitely makes the voice sit a little bit better in the mix there. Reduces some harshness as well. But listening back to it now, I feel like there needs to be more oomph in the lows, especially with making the kick drum possibly cut through. But that could also just be a mixing issue that shouldn't really be fixed in the mastering phase. All right, so next up is the FabFilter Saturn. You can definitely tell once I put this on that this will make the mix louder, but it also adds some thickening saturation effects. I believe I used the Faster Master preset here, aptly named because it did make for a faster master, but then I just fiddled around with the drive buttons here in order to get the edginess I was looking for. So the lows here have the gentle saturation at about half drive, but only about 35% in the mix. The other ones have about similar mix and saturation, but with the different saturation effects. So this one has clean tube, this one has clean tube, and I think this one has warm tube, and a little less in the drive, and almost no mix here. Let's take a listen to that.
I lay my hands upon no other, and I raise my hands up to the sky. The boy is gone. I lay my hands upon no other, and I raise my hands up to the sky. I lay my hands up.
All right. When I put this preset on, the pan pots on the lower two frequency bands here had the pan pots going, I think it was like about 20% left, and then this one had 20% right. But that looked weird to me, so I centered everything. Not exactly sure why the preset was like that, probably for stereo widening purposes, but it was strange to see it on the low end, so I thought I'd be better safe than sorry. All right, next up, and it seems like I was on a saturation or tape kick that day. Next up is the Waves Kramer tape machine. And usually I slap this on just for color because I feel it softens up the high mids to make everything a little smoother sounding. It obviously also pushes the volume of the master down a bit, and you'll hear that once I play it. But that might have been just so that it wouldn't hit the next processor as hard, which is the Pultec EQ here. Let's take a listen to this.
I lay my hands upon no other, and I raise my hands up to the sky. The boy is gone. I lay my hands upon no other.
So it's hard to do a before and after here. Might try to level match here real quick. Hang on.
I lay my hands upon no other, and I raise my hands up to the sky. The boy is gone. I lay my hands upon no other, and I raise my hands up to the sky.
Yeah, so now you'll be able to hear it a little bit better. Here, let's do that again.
I lay my hands upon no other, and I raise my hands up to the sky. The boy is gone. I lay my hands upon no other, and I raise my hands up to the sky.
All right, so that makes it sound a little bit better there, especially when I A/B it. It's easier to hear that it does kind of soften up the highs a little bit, just like I expected it to. And then the next and final actual processor before the limiter is the Pultec EQ. And funnily enough, the Pultec or the Pultec EQ P1A is doing absolutely nothing. It is not doing anything. There's no boosts or cuts. It's just the color that you get from putting it on the channel, which is, I don't know what sort of magic it's coded into it, but I kind of like the sound of it, so let's hear that.
I lay my hands upon no other, and I raise my hands up to the sky. The boy is gone. I lay my hands upon no other, and I raise my hands up to the sky. I lay my hands upon no other, and I
And then the final plugin is the L2 limiter here. I use the L2 only for the reason that of the limiters I have, I think this one is the easiest to handle. I don't really like the built-in Logic ones, and the only other limiter I have is the Plug & Mix Ultra Maxit, which I haven't actually tried at all. So let's hear that.
I lay my hands upon no other, and I raise my hands up to the sky. The boy is gone. I lay my hands upon.
And then other plugins I use here when I master is I use the span to check the frequency response of all the instruments. I use the VLM or WLM meter to check the loudness, and I use perception, which is not on now, but you can see how perception works in action on this specific mastering chain in my YouTube video called How to Make Your Mix Sound Like a Record Instead of a Louder Demo. And this is probably the loudest part of the song, is the limiter isn't really working that much, which brings me to my biggest concern for this song, which is that even though I like how it sounds, I do think it could be louder without compromising sound quality. So let's see what Ian has to say about it and what he recommends doing to make it sound better. All right, we're here with Ian Shepherd of Production Advice and the mastermind behind the Home Mastering Masterclass that's opening up this week, assuming that the editing of this video goes according to plan. And thanks for coming on, Ian. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
No, my pleasure. It's good to be here.
So the audience has seen sort of what my, I guess, perception or method of trying to make this track. I guess in the end it ended up just being trying to make it a little louder because, like I mentioned in the video, I think it's hard to be the mastering and mixing engineer because you kind of run into problems with, well, I don't know what to EQ because I EQ'd it already, you know?
Yeah, it's tough. And quite often you're working on the same monitors and in the same space. So if those were causing you any issues when you were recording and mixing, then they're still going to be causing you issues. You know, let's say there's a big hole at, I don't know, 70 hertz or something at your mixing position. You're going to hear that same thing when you're mastering, so you're not going to spot it. Right. So, yeah, I mean, one of the benefits of going to a pro mastering engineer is that, A, you get another pair of ears on it, but B, you get a whole other perspective. You know, they should have some really accurate monitoring and a really nice room to listen in as well. So they should give you kind of a more objective opinion. I mean, on the masterclass course, one of the things I recommend is that people get a really good pair of headphones. So these are Sennheiser HD 650s, which are something of an industry standard. They're not perfect, but they're good enough that you can kind of put them on and know that what you're hearing is reliable. And so what I suggest is, you know, people, they try listening with the headphones on, and if they hear something with the headphones, take them off again, listen through the monitors, and chances are you will hear it through the monitors as well. Then you can make an adjustment, and you go back to the headphones, and it's this kind of to and fro thing. So, you know, it's not as good as having your own personal mastering studio, but then not many of us, you know, have that liberty.
Right. Well, at least you can use that as a kind of a checks and balances of a sort. Yeah, exactly. And it kind of gives you a different perspective as well, which I think is one of the things about mastering, you know, it's quite important, is just to take yourself out of that mindset, because, you know, you're absolutely right. If you've been working on something for days or weeks or months, the temptation or the risk is that you start making excuses for yourself. You know, you kind of, oh, maybe the kick drum sounds a bit thuddy. Oh no, that was because of this. And you know, the kind of the history gets in the way of you doing the right thing for the music. Right. Whereas somehow listening on a completely different system. I mean, other thing I suggest is that if people can have some kind of, if they could do some kind of in the box mastering on, say, a laptop or something, and go maybe into their living room or wherever, you know, they listen to music a lot, that will give you that different perspective. Your head kind of switches into a different mode, right. Which is kind of important. You know, you kind of need to take a step back at the point of mastering in order to see everything, see the songs in comparison to each other. And so the headphones can help with that. And yeah, I mean, I think I should say, you know, I've watched the video, obviously, and basically, I think you did a good job. Thank you.
It's, you know, it sounds pretty good. There are some things that I would do differently,
right?
And we'll kind of look at those in a minute. I mean, one thing that I absolutely loved. I can't show you right now, but when we switch over to so that you can see my screen, I'll show you the moment in your video that was my favorite
Okay.
moment. But I really like the fact that you were level matching a few times.
Right, I've gotten really into like, well, is this just louder or,
Exactly. And I know that you've got perception and are using that. So I'm interested to know how you use that. But I think in fact, why don't we, unless you had anything else you wanted to ask, maybe if we switch over to, so you can see my screen now, and then I can kind of start talking you through it.
Yeah, sounds good. Great.
Okay, let's do that. Okay, so here we are in Wavelab, which is the software I like to use for mastering. I mean, you can do the audio part of the mastering in any application you like, really. The thing I like about Wavelab is it has all of the tools to make CD masters and export multiple copies of files and stuff all kind of built in. So, and it's very like the software that I always used to use, which was called Sadie, which was kind of the industry standard in mastering for years. So what I've got here is the original audio for your song, and then your master over there. We're not going to listen to that for the time being. I think maybe the most interesting thing I counted up, if I'm right, is I think your signal chain was multiband, EQ, the Saturn saturator, Kramer tape emulation, Puig Tech, and limiter.
Yes.
Which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stages, 6 plugins.
Yep.
So my mastering chain is I have a limiter, and then I have one plugin.
Okay. All right.
Now, that's actually cheating slightly because this is the TC Electronic Multiband Dynamics plugin. So it actually has within it EQ, normalization, an expander, which I don't use, compression, and its own limiter section. So it's kind of like 2 or 3 plugins, if I'm being fair to you.
Yep.
But even so, it's a lot simpler. And I guess I will come back to what's interesting for me. First of all, I'll start off just showing you my thought process, of working on this song. So if I just play a little bit, currently I don't have any EQ in there. So I play the raw track. And the way that I deal with it in mastering is it's like layers of an onion. The outside layer of the onion is usually the roughest. And what do I notice first? And I peel off that layer and then I move to the next. So the first thing that I heard, there are 2 things that I noticed immediately on the track. So first of all, I adjust the level to be roughly right. There isn't time to go into how to set up a mastering level and all that kind of stuff. That's one of the first things we do on the masterclass course. But I've got my meters set up here, and I set the level to be roughly right because most people already probably know as you turn music up, we hear more bass and treble.
Sure.
It's called the smile curve, or the science of it is Fletcher-Munson curve, and it's actually the kind of one of the things that drives the loudness war. It's just that things tend to sound a bit better as you turn them up. But what that means in terms of mastering is if you don't set the level first, any EQ change you make may or may not be right. Yeah, because if you make an EQ change and then you change the level, suddenly it'll probably sound wrong because you hear it differently because the level has changed. So stage 1, set the level. Stage 2, listen to the EQ. The 2 things I heard was there was something kind of a bit weird for me in the upper mids.
Okay.
And there was something a little bit kind of thick and boomy in the low mids. So I messed around I did the low mids first, and I came up with, and then you don't have to cut it out afterwards. So you get less pumping and you get a more balanced EQ. So that's my kind of reasoning. I mean, it's something of a knack because obviously what happens is when you push EQ into the compressor, to some extent the compressor is fighting back. If you let's say you had something where the bass was fine and then you pushed up the low end, then you would start to cause that kind of pumping stuff, but the compressor would also hold the signal back and you'd hear less of that bass that you were putting in.
Right.
So you can put in a 6 dB boost and you might only hear 2 or 3 dBs of it. But especially when you're working with a multiband, that means you can get really creative and it gives you a lot of control over the sound. And that's another one of the things that you see at various stages through the course actually is just how to balance those 2 things out. Mastering is all about balance. Balance of EQ, balance of dynamics versus loudness, balance of the songs next to each other, balance of the entire album with everything else that's out there in the world. And it's all about hitting the sweet spot.
Right.
So, yeah, anyway, there you go.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for taking the time to give me some insight and all of the members that are hopefully joining your home mastering masterclass. Couldn't recommend it more. I definitely need a refresher of it. It's been a while, but doesn't seem like I'm doing that bad of a job, though.
No, I think you're on the right track. Glad you enjoyed it. Hope it was useful.
All
And
right.
you're going to give people a link, right? So if they want to check out the masterclass for themselves, they can head over and take a look, get all the information, yeah?
Yes. For people that become members through Audio Issues and subscribe to your course, they'll be getting this complete tutorial for free.
Excellent. Great value.
Well, thanks a lot for coming on, and I'll talk to you later.
My pleasure.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.